It is time for Pothead Punditry.
Our nation stands on the brink. Every day brings new federal encroachments that take our freedoms and strangle our will. There comes a time when the silliness must take a back seat to the serious issues of the day. The time is now. It's time to fight back and reclaim the freedom that is rightfully ours. It is time to discuss the serious issues of the day with Stoner Jesus' Pothead Punditry.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is Pothead Punditry on the Stoner Jesus Show Live. This is Pothead Punditry number 18. For those of you listening live, thank you. If you're listening to the podcast on iTunes or on stonerjesus.net, thank you as well. If you're listening on YouTube, and like I said, the link for that is at stonerjesus.net, to our YouTube channel. If you're listening to Pothead Punditry on YouTube, share the video, and it's a picture with the audio of our political segment, which is Pothead Punditry. Share this news, share this information far and wide, because it's very important. Like I said, what's going on tonight? Iowa, right now, a lot of people projecting Ron Paul to finish third in Iowa in the Republican caucus for the nomination for President of the United States. Santorum is at 25%, Romney's at 25%, Paul is at 21%. So Paul's going to need a second place finish in New Hampshire to keep momentum going into places like South Carolina and Nevada. We need Ron Paul to get the Republican nomination to run against Obama. It's the only hope for freedom in this country. Even though we're getting the issues out there and we're getting stronger by the day, if it's some fucking puppet like Obama against some dickhead like Santorum or Romney, or God forbid that little troll Newt Gingrich, it would be awful for this country. Taylor is into the chat room with a Ron Paul 2012. Hell yeah. I said the Iowa, I don't know. It could have been worse, but it could have been better in Iowa. But like I said, the Republican establishment said that they were not going to let Ron Paul win. What happened? Maybe we'll know, maybe we'll never know. Speaking of Ron Paul, I want to read you a little bit of this story by Chuck Baldwin from Infowars.com. Talks a little bit about the NDAA, which we're also going to discuss in this issue, episode of Pothead Punditry. But the article states, the recent passage of the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, and the reaction, or better lack of reaction, by the GOP's presidential candidates is a perfect example of how it will not matter to a tinker's damn which Republican candidate wins the nomination unless that candidate is Congressman Ron Paul. This is what so many people within the so-called religious right and establishment GOP just do not understand. They do not understand the fact that America is in the throes of a burgeoning police state. They have buried their heads in the sand for so long that they wouldn't know what tyranny looked like if it came up and bit them on their blessed assurance. They have totally drunk the propaganda Kool-Aid that purports that the biggest threat to our liberties comes from the Sand People, a.k.a. the Muslims. Our founding fathers were a much wiser lot, of course. They understood perfectly that the biggest threat to our liberties comes from Washington, D.C., not Baghdad or Tehran or any other foreign entity. As I tweeted out today on Stoner Jesus 420, you're more likely in this country to get killed by a deer or a malfunctioning home appliance than a terrorist. I return to the article with a quote from a great political statesman in this country's history, Daniel Webster. Quote, there is no nation on earth powerful enough to accomplish our overthrow. Our destruction, should it come at all, will be from another quarter, from the inattention of the people to the concerns of their government from their carelessness and negligence. I must confess that I do apprehend some danger. I fear that they may place too implicit a confidence in their public servants and fail properly to scrutinize their conduct. That in this way they be made the dupes of designing men and become the instruments of their own undoing. End quote. Yet, except for Ron Paul, not a single Republican presidential candidate has issued the slightest warning regarding the draconian components of the NDAA that literally turns America's homeland into a war zone and with the stroke of a pen effectively eviscerates the Bill of Rights. Why is that? Because except for Ron Paul, none of them get it. Bachmann, Gingrich, Perry, Romney, Santorum, none of them. The day after Christmas, TheHill.com posted this report quoting Dr. Paul. Quote, GOP presidential candidate Ron Paul warned that the National Defense Authorization Act, which was passed by Congress this month, will accelerate the country's slip into tyranny and virtually assures our descent into totalitarianism. The founders wanted to set a high bar for the government to overcome in order to deprive an individual of life or liberty, Paul, the Libertarian congressman from Texas, said Monday in a weekly phone message to supporters. That's Libertarian with a small L. To lower the bar is to endanger everyone. When the bar is low enough to include political enemies, our descent into totalitarianism is virtually assured. The Patriot Act, as bad as its violations against the Fourth Amendment was just one step down the slippery slope. The recently passed National Defense Authorization Act continues that slip into tyranny and, in fact, accelerates it significantly. The article continues. The Hill report continued, quoting Dr. Paul, quote, the Fifth Amendment is about much more than the right to remain silent in the face of government questioning, Paul continued. It contains very basic and very critical stipulations about the due process of law. The government cannot imprison a person for no reason and with no evidence presented and without access to legal counsel. The danger of the NDAA is its alarmingly vague, undefined criteria for who can be indefinitely detained by the U.S. government without trial. The report also quoted Congressman Paul as saying, the president's widely expanded view of his own authority to detain Americans indefinitely, even on American soil, is for the first time in this legislation codified in law. Paul said that should chill us to our cores. And indeed it should. Check again with the Iowa caucuses. Romney 25%, Santorum 25%, Paul 21%. Maybe check the news on Twitter. CNN's projecting third place for Ron Paul. NBC, ABC, Ron Paul will finish third. I don't know. What happened? It remained to be seen. Anyways, we continue with Pothead Punditry. We'll take a break here in a minute. I want to discuss let's see. I went on Infowars.com. New polls place Ron Paul a second in New Hampshire. Hopefully he will get that strong second. I'm going to go find some NDAA stories on Infowars.com. Let's see. Yeah, Obama's NDAA signing statement is meaningless. It's more about the lies of Obama leading up to the signing of the NDAA. From Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones on Infowars.com. This is from Monday. The article says Barack Obama's signing statement that was added to the passage of the NDAA bill in an effort to dampen concerns over the indefinite detention provision of the bill is smoke and mirrors for a number of reasons. Prime among them the fact that it was the White House itself, not lawmakers, who demanded Section 1031 be expanded to empower the government to detain U.S. citizens without trial. On first reading, Obama's signing statement appears to assuage fears that American citizens could be targeted for arrest and detention without trial. My administration will not authorize the indefinite military detention without trial of American citizens. Indeed, I believe that doing so would break with our most important traditions and values as a nation, wrote Obama. However, the statement is meaningless for a number of reasons. Firstly, even if Obama manages to fulfill one of the rare occasions on which he keeps his word, this does nothing to stop future administrations from exercising the power to indefinitely detain American citizens without trial. Secondly, the Obama administration is already carrying out even more egregious measures than those supposedly authorized within the NDAA by targeting American citizens worldwide for state-sponsored assassination with no legal process whatsoever, as we did with that dude in Yemen. Thirdly, Obama has reserved almost every single promise he made to get elected. He has reversed almost every single promise he made to get elected. His word is no good. Given the right civil emergency, Obama can turn to indefinite detention of citizens without hesitation. Crucially, Obama's promise that he will not use the law to detain Americans without trial is completely hollow, because it was his administration that demanded the power to do so in the first place. As the bill's co-sponsor, Senator Carl Levin, said during a speech on the Senate floor last month, it was the Obama administration that demanded the removal of language that would have precluded Americans from being subject to indefinite detention. The simple fact is, if he was so worried about the indefinite detention part of the bill, it could have been struck out easily. But Obama was not worried about it. His administration insisted that it be put in to the NDAA. Returning to the article, the language which precluded the application of Section 1031 to American citizens was in the bill that was originally approved, and the administration asked us to remove the language which says that the U.S. citizens and lawful residents would not be subject to this section, said Levin, chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Why would the Obama administration insist that this be allowed to be used against American citizens, unless they were planning on doing so? Levin continued, it was the administration that asked us to remove the very language which we had in the bill, which passed the committee. We removed it at the request of the administration. It was the administration which asked us to remove the very language, the absence of which it now objected to. The article continues, if the Obama administration is so opposed to the idea of detaining American citizens without trial, why do they push for such powers to be included in the final version of the National Defense Authorization Act? Why, indeed? See what else is going on. Check the Iowa caucuses again. Romney 25%, Santorum 25%, Paul 21%. It's looking like a third place finish for Ron Paul in Iowa. We'll see what happens with New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada coming up. Let's see. Yeah, let me go check this poll. New polls place Ron Paul a strong second in New Hampshire. Two new polls have found Ron Paul in a strong second place behind runaway leader Mitt Romney. 7 News Suffolk University Daily Tracking Poll conducted December 31st to January 1st and released Monday. Romney came in with 43% to Paul's 17%. The next nearest competitor the poll found was former Utah Governor John Huntsman, who garnered 9%. The poll placed Newt Gingrich in fourth with 8%. New Hampshire voters are losing confidence in Gingrich, similar to recent Iowa trends, which may result in an early state 1-2 punch that knocks Newt out of the presidential race, said David Paleologos, director of Suffolk University's Political Research Center. The other poll, conducted by Magellan Strategies, Romney polled at 41%, Paul 21%, and with Huntsman and Gingrich tied at 12%. As I said, Ron Paul needs a good second-place finish in in New Hampshire, after tonight's third-place finish in Iowa. And that looks like where everybody's projecting third place. And that looks like the way it's going to be. I don't know. Anyway, that's a Pothead Punditry, a short version, if you will, of Pothead Punditry. Because, I guess if you look at it, we are getting the message out there. But how well we're doing? Can Ron Paul fight the Republican establishment? Will Ron Paul run as a third party candidate? I don't know. And if he did, would he become president? We'll have to see. We'll just have to wait and see. That was Pothead Punditry, episode 18. Like I said, if you're listening on YouTube, or wherever you're going, wherever you're at, wherever you're listening, share the information. Get the word out there. Go to Infowars.com, share that information. Go to RonPaul2012.com, share that information. Go to DailyPaul.com and share that information.